Are you ready to quit your job, but you don't have an exit strategy? Or have you outgrown another role, maybe that's in your life or in your career, and you're not really sure what to do next? Hey there, I'm Kathleen, and as a transition strategist, I help high performing women, primarily Black women, navigate life and career transitions with more ease and less chaos by deepening self trust and realigning you with your values. And in this video today, I'm going to walk you through how I knew that I needed to change and the steps that I took to create an exit strategy that gave me options. And if you're in a similar position where you know that you've clearly outgrown a role and you're ready for what's next, but maybe you don't have clarity or you're not sure what the next step should be, I created something that might be helpful. It's a 5-day email series, the pre-exit audit. And this series will help you assess what's working, what's not working, and what you actually need in order to take steps forward. So the link's in the description box below, so you can go ahead and sign up and you'll start receiving those in your inbox. So over the course of 5 years, I went through 4 periods of unemployment. Now, two of those were my choice, but the other two were not. So I took time off to grieve after my father passed away. And then I was laid off at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. And then in another role, I had survived multiple company layoffs, but because of some of the restructuring, I was ultimately part of what they were calling the Great Resignation. And then another period of unemployment, that would happen because I didn't fully understand my rights as an employee until it was too late. Honestly, even if I had known my rights and, exercised those rights sooner, I probably would have still lost my job, but, maybe it would have looked different, allegedly. Now, the truth is, in each of those situations, every time I found myself at kind of I want like a career crossroads where I'm like, okay, this isn't working, but what do I do next? I created an exit strategy for each, and none of them look the same. No two exit strategies look the same. And so today I'm just going to focus on one of those moments. It's the one that taught me the power of making intentional moves while you're still employed, while you're still on that company's payroll. So I was in a new role, and during my first performance review at that company, I received a poor rating, a poor review. And that's the first time in my entire career that I had ever received a poor performance review. And I didn't agree with it. But to be honest, the feedback felt biased, allegedly. But even then, my first thought wasn't, okay, I need to get out of here. It was, okay, what needs to change? Like what do I need to do, if anything, to turn this around, right? Like how do we get this kind of like how do we get this off of my record? A few months later, we as a team traveled for an in-person workshop, and I was scheduled to give a presentation. But the day that I landed, I got physically sick. And so I immediately let my manager know that I would be skipping, the events for that evening, but I would, do my presentation as scheduled the next day. Well, the next morning, I still wasn't feeling well. And so I gave her heads up to let her know, we might need to push my presentation or we might need to figure something else out, but I'm not going to be ready for a 9 a.m. presentation. Now, long story short, I ended up giving that presentation later that day, and I was later told that I crushed it. But a few weeks later, I had a one-on-one with my manager, and she said to me that when I almost didn't give that presentation, mind you, I was sick, but when I almost didn't give that presentation, I lost some of her trust. And it was in that moment that I knew that, it wasn't because I wasn't performing or meeting the expectations of my role, but basically my manager did not want to trust me, allegedly. It felt personal. It felt like it was no longer about business. It was no longer about my actual job performance. It felt like it was her personal expectations of me. And that's when I knew I needed to start planning my exit, not out of, panic, like, okay, what am I going to do? I need to get out of here, but more so out of protecting myself and preserving my energy. And so what I did next, I didn't actually go to HR because I learned early in my career that HR, they're not your friend. They protect the company. They don't protect the employee the way maybe some of us have been told, oh, if you have a problem, just go to HR. They don't, that's not really what they're there for. They give you information about your benefits. They give you information about company policies and things like that. But at the end of the day, they're really protecting the best interests of the company. So what I did instead was I reached out to a colleague who was a part of the Black Employee Resource Group. And, I just kind of talked to him about what I was experiencing. I think I kind of needed somebody else to help me realize that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't overreacting. Even though I knew I wasn't, it just helped for somebody else to be like, yeah, no, that's not normal. And then I was working with my life coach at the time, and I also talked to her about it. And I said to her, I was like, "Look, I don't really know what I want next. I just know that this isn't going to work long term, but I want to be able to stay employed while I figure out what's next." And so from there, I got very strategic. I started to look at what I could access while I was still an employee. So at this company, they had learning and development budgets for each employee, but most people didn't really take advantage of it. And I'll admit, even early in my career, I didn't always take advantage of going to conferences on the company's dime or other learning and development, professional development opportunities. I don't really know why, but that all changed in this situation. And so I started looking up conferences, trainings, workshops, certifications that were both relevant to my current role and things that I was just interested in. And I kind of pitched a business case for me to be able to go. And I created, a budget and I presented that as a way to kind of explore all of my options. Because like I said, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do next, but I knew I wanted to both use the skills that I had and just learn to take advantage of learning and development and professional development that was on the company's dime. The next thing I did was I started running my numbers. What did I need to survive month over month at a minimum? What would it take for me to build a financial buffer? How long would it take? How long was I comfortable, or how many months was I comfortable saving for to feel comfortable enough to, plan my exit or execute my exit strategy? And that's when I realized that this wasn't about just leaving a job. It was really about choosing how I wanted to live my life beyond just a job, finding other ways to make money that didn't rely on me having to be in these spaces and environments where I wasn't valued, where I was often overlooked, where I wasn't appreciated, where I had to repeat myself over and over and over, and people still didn't listen, right? These environments that weren't really built for me to thrive. I realized that I wanted rest. I wanted to reclaim my time. And so I started planning a sabbatical. And unfortunately, I didn't get to take that sabbatical. And that's a whole other story. I'll probably create another video to talk about that. So make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss that story. But, the point is that I created an exit strategy and realized I didn't want to just jump into another job. And your path might be similar, it might be different. Maybe you're planning to pivot into another industry, or maybe you want to exit as an individual contributor and go into leadership. Or maybe you've been working part-time in your own business and you're ready to go full-time. Or maybe you do want to take a gap year or a sabbatical and just take some time to rest. No matter what your next chapter looks like, you deserve to make it strategic and not reactive. And honestly, it does take longer than we might want to be able to execute our exits. Transitions really take time. Don't let anybody fool you. Transitions take time, more time than we probably want. But if you're ready to start building your strategy, join the 5-day pre exit audit series, where every day you'll get an email with a small but intentional step that you can take towards creating your own exit strategy. And by the end, you'll have a clearer idea of what's next for you and how to move forward. The link is in the description box below, and I'll see you inside.